Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Anne, and this is Postcards from My Golden Years. So, if you've been a subscriber to my channel for a while, for close to a year, you may remember that almost a year ago I had posted a video talking about the fact that when Jeff, who's my husband, when he finally retires from his job in a couple of years, we are going to move to France. And back when I did that video, we weren't exactly sure where we were going to move to. Since then, we've gone to France. We've spent about 3 weeks there, traveling, visiting all kinds of towns. We started in Paris, got in the car, drove down to Saint-Emilion, drove all the way across the south of France, through Provence, visiting all of the little towns, looking for a potential future new home. And as a matter of fact, if you didn't catch all of those videos that we did all along the way, go back to my library of videos and check them out. Anyway, we ended up in Nice on that trip, Nice, France, on the French Riviera. And we immediately fell in love with Nice, and we decided that Nice fit all of the criteria that we had established for determining where the best place to move to would be for us. And by criteria, I'm talking about things like, is it a beautiful city? Is it walkable? I mean, we're going to sell pretty much everything we own, including our cars, here in the United States, and move with technically very little. So we prefer not to have to buy a car, although it may turn out that we're going to have to buy an inexpensive car just for errands and things like that if we don't feel like using a scooter or walking. But anyway, we were looking for a place that is very walkable, where we could get up in the morning and walk to the boulangerie, walk to the patisserie, walk to cafes, walk to the bank, the grocery store, and just keep active. We were also looking for a place that has a large hospital, good hospital for all kinds of senior health care. I mean, by the time we move, we will be 70 years old. So we have to think in terms of health care for seniors. What are the possibilities? We may be in great health now, but who knows what the future will bring. And we don't want to have to keep hopping around from town to town to town. So we want to settle in a place that has a good hospital, a place that has good health care, good doctors, specialists in various fields. And we want some place that's near a train station that can get us to Paris, which is my favorite city in the world, and elsewhere in Europe, because once we are living in Europe, we want to do some traveling. And what better way than taking a nice train ride to Paris for a long weekend, or Italy or Germany or wherever. So we needed to be near a train station. We also needed to be near an airport, potentially or preferably an international airport, but an airport, major airport, not like a little tiny airport where they ride a mule to come and signal in the planes, bring the planes in. I actually went to an airport like that in the mountains outside of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. When the plane landed, some guy came on a donkey and directed the plane in. Anyway, we didn't want an airport like that wherever we settled. So the other thing was that we looked at the cost of living there. Could we afford it? We looked at our current costs here in the United States. Of course, my husband is working and he's a very successful architect, so he's doing quite well. When we move to France, he will not be working, neither of us will be working. So we'll be living on whatever savings we have been trying to grow between our getting together 7 years ago and when we finally move. And then we will also have our U.S. Social Security checks. So we'll be pretty much on a fixed income. So we needed to find a place that would support our finances, or other way around, that our finances would be able to support. So when we got to Nice, we fell in love. It fit all of the criteria, and we decided, okay, Nice is it. That's where we're going. My first choice would have been Paris, but Paris is just so expensive. But the fact that Paris is about a 3.5 hour train trip away makes it a whole lot closer than being 7 or 8 hours away by plane now from here in Florida. So anyway, that's how we decided on Nice. So once we decided on where we were going, the next question became, okay, well, should we buy a house? Should we buy an apartment? And we attended an online seminar that was presented by someone, an expat who is from the United States, who specializes in real estate. As a matter of fact, if you watch House Hunters International, she is the realtor that shows people all of the homes in France, in Paris and in Nice. That's Adrienne. And so Adrienne put on this seminar talking to people about investing in property or real estate in France. And she had some mortgage specialists and other specialists that participated in this seminar as well. So one thing that we learned by watching that seminar was that at age 70, we will be too old to get a mortgage in France. It is nearly impossible, if not totally impossible, for people, I guess Americans, I don't know whether it's just expats or whether it's anybody in France, but if you are older than a certain age, and I think it was actually the line is drawn at a younger age than 70, you can't really get a mortgage. So that meant that if we want to have a home of our own, whether it's a house or an apartment, we would have to buy it for cash. Now, unlike a lot of other people in this world, at this point in their lives, some people have amassed millions and millions of dollars in a portfolio or bank account. We're not those people. Having both of us come from divorces that left us pretty much with nothing in a retirement account, we had to start fresh when we got together. When we got married almost 7 years ago. So everything that we've been putting away has been pretty much money from working, and I had a small inheritance a few years ago when my mother passed away. So that money has been put into an investment account and a savings account, and that is our cushion. We don't want to use that money to buy a house or an apartment, because if we use that, we won't have a cushion. we would probably have to use almost all of that to purchase something. And then there are the monthly expenses that go with owning your own home. And we have decided that for us, because we're basically going to be living on our U.S. Social Security monthly payments, we would rather keep all of the money that's in our savings account as our travel money, our fun money, our cushion in case of an unexpected major expense, and rent. So, and I've done a lot of research, and I found that we're pretty close to the monthly payment we might have with a mortgage, or even less. We could live in a much bigger property if we had decided that we were going to take our entire savings and buy a house or an apartment for cash. We would not be able to afford as much of an apartment or a house as we can if we rent on a long-term basis. So we've decided that we are going to rent. The other thing is that when you rent something in France, especially if you're newly transitioning over from the United States to France, you may decide, I don't like living in this particular town. I want to go try that particular town. Or, hey, let's go live in Italy for a little bit. You can far more easily pick up, load up the car or whatever, and move someplace else if you are renting than if you have to first list it with a realtor and sell it before you can move on. So renting seems to be the best suggestion for us. So we're going to look for as much of an apartment or a house as we feel that we can afford on our joint monthly income from our Social Security, and see where it takes us. So I've been doing an awful lot of research on this, and as I research, I learn more and more interesting things about relocating to France and renting. One of the things that I have learned is that it's not so easy as someone from the United States for someone from the United States to go over and just find a place to rent, contact them, look at it, say, yep, I'll take it. It doesn't always go that way. From what I understand, there are often landlords that don't want to rent to people from the US or other countries because you don't have any kind of history in France. Now, we'll make sure that we get our current landlord to write us a letter of reference. I don't think that's going to be a problem. We will get a glowing reference, I'm sure, from our current landlord. However, I have read some advice online suggesting that in order to best find a rental, a long-term rental, it's often better to work with an agency that specializes in assisting expats to find that rental, to assist with all of the negotiations, if there are negotiations as far as the monthly rent. There are also taxes that you as the renter have to pay, and depending on when you move in, some of the taxes, I believe, are an annual tax, and the landlord has to pay that tax if there's nobody living in that apartment or house. I think it's on January 1st. And so one of the little tidbits that I picked up was, if you're going to rent, don't start the rental until January 2nd or 3rd. That way you don't have to worry about paying the tax for that year. The landlord will have to pay it. But there are taxes that the landlord legally will pass on to you as a renter. We're going to sell pretty much everything in our house, with the exception of, a few boxes of dishes and things that are treasures that we don't want to part with. But for the most part, none of our furniture is coming with us. So for us, it's going to be the best deal to find a furnished place for 3 years, if somebody will rent to us for 3 years. But getting back to what I was saying about finding an agent to assist you, when we get closer, we will probably be contacting again Adrienne, and I think her organization is Adrienne Leads, and she has offices in Paris and in Nice, fortunately. And we would either work with her or one of her other representatives with the company. And for a fee, I don't know what that fee is at the moment. I'm guessing it could be, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500. Don't hold me to that. I have no clue. I'm just pulling a number out of the air. But I'm guessing for a fee like that, they would assist us in finding a long-term rental, reviewing all of the paperwork, and then getting all of it finalized. They can even arrange to go to the place, have power turned on for us in our name, do a lot of the other details if we have things shipped ahead of us that arrive before we do. I think they can send a representative who can actually be there to greet the shipping company or what have you. I don't know all of the details. I haven't even gotten to the point where we've called them or emailed them to ask for a list of what all of their services would be. But I am sensing from the research that I am doing that the easiest way to get there without a lot of aggravation and hair pulling is to find an agency that works specifically with expats in helping them find long-term rentals. So, of course, in order to move to France, we will need to apply for a long stay visa. When you apply for the visa, this is for the initial period is for 1 year, and you have to renew it every year. There is a whole list of documents that we will need to provide in order to get our long stay visa. So here's a list of what I have compiled so far if we were going to make application today. Obviously, anything can change next month, next year, the year after. This is based on current requirements. So then there's health insurance. In order to get a long stay visa in France, we are required to buy, yes, that's Bella barking over there. We are required to buy a healthcare policy that will cover all of our health expenses with no deductible. I believe up to $30,000. We have to prepay it for 1 year in advance. And that is a requirement to get the long stay visa, as I said. Once we get to France, after we've been living there for 3 months, we can go to, I believe it's the mayor's office, but I have to check specifically in the town that we'll be living. We will be able to go and make application for the French health system. And based on the research that I have done so far, at our age, because we will be retired and not be earning an income, being on the French health system should not cost us any money at all. However, while it covers most of your expenses, there are some more expensive things that it may not cover as much of as, for example, the Medicare and the Medicare supplemental plan we have here in the United States. And so they have what are called mutuelle plans, which would be like a supplemental insurance plan. And we will need to start looking into mutuelle plans to see how much they would cost, so that once we're on the French health system, we have our basic health care with no premium and very low cost, I believe including dental. And then our mutuelle health plan, whatever we purchase, would cover any other things or cover the difference in price, whatever the co-payment would be. So I'm not at the point where I'm ready to talk about that. I'm just sharing with you that that's going to be a requirement. But I have checked out prices on that health insurance plan that I would have to purchase. And I actually went to one of the websites and I put in the fact that I was looking for a plan that would start June 1st, 2024 and end May 31st, 2025, which would be that whole year. And here's the quote. So it's not a lot of money that we have to prepay. And from what I have read in my research, after we apply for the French health system, it's fairly quick to get into the system once you make the application. Then when you notify the insurance company that you have that 1 year policy through that you want to cancel, most of them will refund the unused portion of the insurance. So if we get on the French health plan within the first 6 months that we're there, we would get a refund for half of what we paid into it, hopefully. So to be determined. But this is something that if you're making the move, you need to know it is a requirement to get your long stay visa. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, if I'm giving you some good information today, how about stopping right now and just give me a thumbs up? It will push my video up in search results on YouTube, and YouTube will show it to more people, and I'd really appreciate it. It'll help grow my channel. Thank you. So the other thing that we have to consider is that we are bringing our little dog, Bella, and so we have to make sure that we find a property that will allow pets. And as far as I know, most in France do allow pets, which is a great thing. But there is the issue of getting her there. So from the research that I have done, at least as of now, there is only one airline that for sure will let Bella fly in the cabin with us on a transatlantic flight. There are other airlines that will allow her to be transported with us, but not in the cabin, even though she's just a little dog and would be in a carrier that would fit under the seat. It is American and Delta. I believe they allow pets in a carrier, little ones that will fit under the seat, but not on a transatlantic flight. So if she traveled with us on an American flight or Delta as of the moment, she would have to fly in the hold. So you have to think about weather concerns because the hold can get cold and it can get very hot. So picking the right time of year to move is really important if you're bringing a pet, and in our case, bringing little Bella. At the moment, Air France allows pets to travel in the cabin. Now, we know for sure in business class, because when we traveled to France in September, last September, we were in business class and a woman had her little Yorkie sitting on her lap. So I don't know if you can bring a dog in the cabin in the non-business in economy or coach or whatever else they call it on Air France. But I know on business class, at least as of the moment, you can bring your dog with you as long as the carrier can fit under the seat. So for us, another option that we were thinking about, we were actually thinking of taking a freighter and taking all of the boxes that we are taking with us to France, of the treasures that we don't want to part with. And we thought, well, we'll put them on a freighter and then we'll all travel on the freighter. Unfortunately, I learned that freighters don't allow pets. So the freighter idea is out, at least if we want to travel with Bella. But there is one cruise line, and that is the Queen Mary 2 cruise line, which is actually Cunard. It is the only one that allows pets. To do that, you have to book your trip around 12 to 18 months ahead because they only have 24 total kennels on that ship and they fill up really fast. I've been told that, for example, 2022 is totally booked for pets. 2023, early 2023 is already starting to be booked up. Now, we won't be traveling until around May or June of 2024. But if we decide that that's how we want to travel to Europe, we would have to start thinking about it around the middle of next year. So to bring your dog into France, your dog has to be identified with either a microchip or a tattoo. In our case, Bella has a chip. She needs to be at least 3 months old, no problem there. She needs to be present with you. She needs that proof of rabies and good health certificate, rabies vaccine. And she may be subject to quarantine, but who knows? You wouldn't know till you get there. So the trip across the ocean, you sail from New York to Southampton, UK, England. Takes 7 days to get there. Based on a rate that I found just yesterday, if we were going to sail, for example, in April next month, I found a rate for a room with a balcony of $1,150 US per person. And then it's an extra $800 for Bella to be in the doggy kennel. I thought that was a fabulous rate. Now, I don't know what the rates will be as we get closer, because now we're talking about 2024, but far less expensive than I thought it would be. Of course, you're only going one way, and it is cold, from what I understand, in the North Atlantic, even when you sail in the summertime. So there's not going to be a whole lot of let's sit out by the pool in our bathing suit and get a tan on that cruise, but we would be very, very pampered. I mean, what a great way to travel to Europe. And then, of course, we would have to work out the details from Southampton to get to Nice, France. There may be some complications as far as first stop with the dog is in the UK. I don't know what their regulations are with Bella. I don't know whether she would be subject to a quarantine first landing in Southampton, and then before we can take her to France, maybe she has to go through something there. Maybe not. I haven't gotten that far because we haven't gotten far enough to decide if we were definitely going to sail. I think Bella would love it. She would be pampered beyond belief. I mean, total white glove treatment, which is the same as what we would get on the cruise. And for a one-way cruise from New York to Southampton, England, it was surprisingly inexpensive, at least based on prices for a cruise in April next month. So I don't know what the prices will be. I mean, with the cost of gas and everything else going up, I don't know what the price of taking that same cruise one way in 2024 will be. But often cruise lines will give you a lot of discounts if you book way, way ahead. But it's something to think about. We are far from deciding how we are going to get to France. So, packing. Well, as I've said, and as you would imagine, coming from the US, we can't take everything we own. We are going to have to sell pretty much everything in the house. I'm making some exceptions. I mean, we have some pieces of art that we've purchased on our vacations that I'm not going to part with. And I have a beautiful set of French china that Jeff bought me a few years ago for Christmas that I've actually been saving to use in France. And there's some pieces of crystal and things like that that I would like to bring with us, as well as some photos and things of family and treasures. Not a whole lot. And of course, we're going to have to reduce our clothes. That's the tough part. And have to reduce my clothing, which is now in one full walk-in closet in our master bedroom and half of a closet in the guest room. I'm going to have to reduce that down to all that will fit in maybe, I don't know, a 4-foot space in a wardrobe someplace. That's going to be tough, but I am determined. So, and shoes, oh my gosh, I've got like well over 100 pairs of shoes. I'm going to have to reduce it down. Today I'm saying 24 pairs. I'm probably going to have to get it down to maybe around 10 and maybe a couple of pairs of boots. We'll see. I'm going to do my best. I keep trying to get Jeff to go along with us paying for half of a container. Like on a freighter, a ship container, you can buy half of a container. And that way you don't have to fill the whole thing. The only problem is that you have to wait until they sell the other half of the container, and then you can't be in a hurry for those things because it could take you 4 to 6 months to get those things, hopefully less, but I'm willing to do that, particularly for things we don't use day to day. The things that we use day to day are pretty much going to be going in yard sales, garage sales here. We're not going to take those things with us, but treasures, maybe even a change of clothes for another season, those kinds of things that we can pack in the half of container and stuff it in there, so that in a few months after we get to France and we're settled, those things will be delivered and we can decide, how to decorate with them or whatever. So these are decisions that have to be made. I've already started selling things. I went to my guest room where I've got a lot of clothes and designer things that I no longer wear. They're either too small or I just don't wear them. Some minor other pieces that I've been carrying around from house to house to house over my adult life. Time to get rid of those things. And I've started selling those things. So I'm selling some of my clothes on Poshmark, and I'm sending other stuff to ThredUp, and other stuff I am taking over to a thrift shop. I've taken some business clothes and things from the past, that I used to wear in the past when I was in the business world. I've taken those things to a women's shelter in Naples, Florida. So I'm starting to look at those things, and over the next few weeks, my goal is to take one cabinet at a time in the kitchen and start pulling out things that we aren't using day to day. I used to do these elaborate dinner parties, 10, 12 courses. I haven't done them in years, and yet I still have platters and serving bowls and multiple sets of dishes and things like that. I'm going to start listing those things on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and start trying to thin things out. Ultimately, we'll probably have to do a few yard sales or garage sales here. And then there is the garage. That's sort of Jeff's bailiwick, and he's very busy. I mean, I can't fault him for this. And he's also a procrastinator. Hopefully he won't wait until a month or two before we're ready to leave before he starts thinking about getting rid of all of that, because I would say 99.9% of that isn't coming with us. And there's the Christmas tree and all the Christmas ornaments and things, and it's a lot to get rid of. But the good thing is that after we sell all of our furniture and things, it will add to the pot of money that we will have as our cushion to buy new things when we get to France. But it is a big undertaking when you have to sell everything. I mean, how many of you have ever thought about getting rid of so much of your possessions as you reach, your golden years or come close? I mean, it'll certainly make it easier for anybody who's got to deal with our belongings long after we're gone. So anyway, so that's also in the plan. And even though we are 2 years out, it's not too soon to start thinking about these things, because there are so many things in our home that we aren't using now that we will definitely not be using between now and when we move out. So why not take the time, sell them, put them in the box of money or the bank or whatever, and just then hopefully by the time we are down to the home stretch, there's not a whole lot left to get rid of. So if you are planning your move from the US or Canada or wherever you are in the world to France or another country even, These are things that you should be thinking about now. And if you are one of those people who is in fact planning a move with your husband or alone or with your partner, wife, feel free to, in the comments below, feel free if I haven't touched on something that you're interested in. I may have already researched it, and it may be up here, or it may be in the notes that I've already made, maybe even in an article in a folder that I've started just to collect information on this move for us. So feel free to leave comments on what you're trying to find out that you think everybody else who's on this path would also be interested in. And if I don't know the answer, I'll see if I can find the answer and share it with you in another video. So in this video, I have covered some of the most important things that are top of mind for me anyway. Since I'm the retired one right now, I'm the one who is at home doing the research and starting the planning for our move. So even though it is 2 years out, we do have sort of a pinpointed period of time when we are going to make the move. And I am starting to prioritize the things that will need to be done. I mean, for the long stay visa, because we're both divorced, we're going to need copies of our divorce paperwork. So, it gives us 2 years to chase down any paperwork, and we're going to need bank statements for the 3 months prior to making the application. And I believe Jeff is going to need pay stubs or something for the last 3 months, and we're going to need proof of our Social Security income. So there are a lot of things we're going to need. In this video, my purpose is really just to cover the most important things that I am working on now as far as our long-term planning for our move. And as I come up with other things that I want to share with all of you who are also planning a move to France, I'm sort of blazing the trail for some of you. And I'm happy to share whatever I come up with. So periodically, look for updates to this. And I hope we'll see you all in France one day. So thank you so much for watching my video. I hope I have provided those of you who are also on your exploration path, finding your way to moving from the US or wherever you are in the world to France. I hope that I have provided some tips, some good information for you. And as I learn more, I will continue to post updates on my channel. It may be a while between videos, but I thought this would give most people who are thinking ahead a year or two, like us, it would give you a lot of things to start looking at, thinking about, researching yourself. There is a wealth of information online. I have also found that on Facebook, there are numerous Facebook groups of expats. People have already made this journey from the US or UK or other parts of the world who are very open to sharing their experience. And some of the information that I have gotten from those expats who share their experiences, good and bad, on Facebook groups. So if you're on Facebook and this is something that you're seriously planning to do, look up some of those groups and join those groups and ask questions. There is nobody better to get answers from than those who have already blazed that trail. So thanks again for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. It's so easy. Just click below, click that little bell so that you don't miss any of our future videos. Jeff and I will be doing some traveling soon. Very shortly, we're going to be going to Tortola and the BVI because Jeff's got this desperate desire to go to the Soggy Dollar Bar. He's never been there before. And it's on his bucket list, so we're going to do that before we make our move to France. So one of these days, it's at least a couple months off. One of these days, we will be sharing that video. But for the time being, please subscribe. If you haven't watched any of my other videos, go back to my library of videos. And there are over 100 wonderful videos of Jeff's and my travels here in Florida, Cuba, Morocco, France, and we're happy to share our experiences. So thanks again. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.